Hey, Aubrey, how's it going?
I'm great, Jessica. How are you this fine morning?
I'm good. I'm cold. It's still
Oh
cold here in
no.
Portland. It snowed for like half a day last week. Ugh.
Mm. I know, it's crazy. The weather's crazy. I read an article about waterfalls in Arizona because they've had so much more snowfall up north. I guess it's like the best waterfalls for hiking right now because there's more water running, right? So I'm
Sure.
like, "Oh, okay. I got to find a waterfall that normally is dry and would actually be a waterfall now."
That's crazy. That's so awesome. Okay, we're not here though to talk about our crazy weather. We are here to help students with impossible part 3 questions because they're not impossible. They shouldn't be impossible.
Exactly. There are going to be unexpected questions. I love this word from the title, abominable. Like unfair
Let's
almost.
explain that. Yeah, what's abominable mean?
I know, I think of the abominable snowman,
Of
right?
course.
There's
Yeah.
definitely a negative connotation here. It means like terrible,
Mhm.
scary, awful.
Yep.
And yeah, there's a good chance you're going to get a part 3 question that is very difficult, but if you are
Totally.
prepared, you can still get a high score.
Definitely. So, we are going to give you 3 phrases you could use to help you address these part 3 questions that maybe you have never thought about before. These are very weird questions because, like Aubrey said, this happens a lot on the speaking test. So, we were inspired to bring you this lesson today because of a comment from a YouTube subscriber. Um, Thank you, Madi Palevin. Guys, do check us out on YouTube, IELTS Energy TV. Let's see. So he asked a very good question and even gave some examples from when he took the exam. Aubrey, can you read his question, please?
Yes, you said about part 3. Sometimes we have no idea of the questions. Is there any strategy by which candidates can deal with them? For me, it was fashion and environment 2 years ago. So I can imagine if he hadn't seen anything in the news recently or hadn't thought really about the fashion industry or
Yeah.
maybe environmental issues, these would feel abominable, right? You would get hit by these and say, oh, I don't have a lot to say.
I mean, yeah, like fashion as a topic. Most people couldn't talk about that in,
Absolutely.
like in an impressive way, really. And the environment, yeah, like this is a hot IELTS topic that everybody knows about. I'm sure you guys are trying to read articles about the environment, gathering vocabulary, but there's still really hard questions related
Yeah.
to this, and you can't practice everything. So before we get into some language that you guys should practice using, um, just know that you're not graded on your specialized knowledge, right? That's the first thing you have to realize, that when you're asked a really tough question, you're not expected to like be able to regurgitate statistics from whatever. You don't have to do that. You just have to say something about the topic. So we're going to teach you how to do that and still get a high score today. Let's teach the vocabulary first. So, we're going to give you 3 phrases you could use to fill time, right? To still answer right away. Let the examiner know that this is a tough question and you're still going to say something. So, we're going to teach you 3 phrases and then we'll try and give you some examples. All right, Aubrey, what is the first phrase our students can use?
All right. You can say, wow, honestly, this question has never crossed my mind. Let's see. What I can say is, ooh, such a good
Nice.
filler. And if you practice that to where you can say all of that without thinking about it, with
Yeah.
that really native intonation, right? With
Yeah.
this idiom of something crossing your mind, here you are boosting your scores while thinking of your answer.
Yeah, totally. This buys you a lot of time.
Yeah.
All of these phrases, they buy you a lot of time. Great vocab, perfect grammar, great pronunciation if you can mimic what Aubrey just did. All of these phrases will help your score, right? And um, give you a couple extra seconds to think of anything you could say about the topic. So remember, in the second part of today's episode, we will give you examples of using these phrases for real IELTS questions. So, Awesome. Basically, all that is saying is like, oh, I never thought about it. And I know I've heard students say that before, right? So it's
Mhm.
not like it's not a complicated meaning. Like it literally just means I never thought about that before.
Yeah, and I think it's just good to know you guys may have thought about this, wondering, is it going to pull down my score if I admit that I haven't thought about this before? If I admit that
Totally.
this has thrown me off a little bit? And the answer is no. I love what you said, Jessica. You're not being judged on your intelligence or the statistics you can share.
Right.
You are being graded on whether you can say something, whether you
Yeah.
can speak, even if what you're saying is that you haven't really thought about it. And then what you can say is, someone else's opinion you have heard, or something, anything related that is not maybe showing your intelligence, where in lots of other topics you would maybe really shine and have a ton to say.
Sure.
That won't be the case for every question.
Yeah, sure. Totally. And remember, guys, we will give you examples of how to use these. Okay. So the second phrase is, well, I knew part three would be hard, but you've really stumped me. What I do know is, okay, so this adjective stumped, like you have stumped me. I am stumped. Um, it just means like I don't know what to say right now. I have no idea. This confused me a lot. But again, like it's great vocab. It is a little bit on the informal side, which is still fine in part three because this is showing like an honest response that is fluent, that is using appropriate vocab to the context. If you're like, wait, what? The examiner knows the question is bonkers. Okay. We know, we're seeing them. We know these questions are weird often. So if you like validate that opinion, like I'm the examiner, I know this is a weird question. You can also say that out loud, right? It's it's true. So like Aubrey said, you're great, you're just graded on your speaking. Just speak. If we can fill time and not have pauses, use great vocab, show like a genuine personality while you're speaking, right? You're standing out, you're sounding natural. All of this is helping your score. And we haven't even answered the question yet.
I know, exactly, right? All three of these filler phrases have such high level vocabulary that that's really where absolutely you could say, just like, haven't thought about that before. Lots of students know to say that, right? That's
Yeah,
not
totally.
boosting your scores. Whereas you can
Boring.
have a filler phrase like this with idiomatic language, really impressive adjectives like to be stumped,
Yeah,
where you're impressing the examiner with your filler as you think about what to say. That's what you want to go with, right? Not the
totally.
kind of filler every student uses that doesn't have that high level vocab.
Black. That's what I
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Okay. And here's the last phrase, guys, and then we'll go into examples. So, um, the third way you can answer these tough questions is, oh gosh, that question is sort of out of left field. I suppose. So there's that idiom from baseball. So
Mhm.
many idioms from baseball, but out of left field is like, this is the weirdest question. That's all you're saying. Like that question, where does that even come from?
I know, right? And this one is a little more specific to, especially even on part 3, you will be asked questions that are a little more garden variety, like we taught that in a recent
Yeah.
episode. Go
Yeah.
back if you missed it. And this would be strange if it's a
Yeah.
really pretty straightforward question like, what types of food do people in your culture eat? If you're like, that question's out of left field, that's strange, right? This really does need to be reserved for a question that is like unexpected, that you wouldn't expect to answer, that you really haven't thought about before.
I'm so glad you made that point, Aubrey. That reminds me of like students overusing fillers that have in their mind, these fillers are just words detached from meaning. Like they don't actually
Right.
mean anything anymore, right? Remember, guys, words always have meaning, okay? And your words have to be appropriate to the meaning. So, like if in part one, I ask a student, what's your favorite color? And the student's like, that's an interesting question. I'm like,
Right.
no, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's not an interesting question. So, yeah, make sure that you know the meaning of the phrases you're using so you use them appropriately.
Right? Reserve these for questions that are really difficult that you need just a moment to think about your answer. Then throw one of these out, hit the examiner with that high level vocab.
All right. Now, let's give our students examples of how to use this for real IELTS speaking questions. What can we actually say to answer these difficult, weird questions? So, Aubrey, will you ask me the first question, please?
Yes. Why do women like to go shopping?
Well, I mean, I knew part three would be hard, but honestly, that really stumped me. I know it seems like an easy question, but it's not. What I do know is the stereotype of women always love shopping. That drives me crazy because it is not true. Take my mom and stepdad, for example. My mom, she used to like shopping, I guess, but she views it as like a waste of time now and it annoys her if she has to go shopping. But my stepdad, oh my gosh, he could spend hours in a Costco. He could spend hours in a mall. He loves shopping. So I guess I only know from personal experience, but I can't begin to say why all women love shopping because I don't even think that's true.
Oh, I love this answer so much. And I think this could be one of those that could really throw you off. If you're asked about fashion and a question has a stereotype or has something you actually don't agree with, don't feel like you have to agree with it. Everything Jessica said was sort of, going against this stereotype, but is still answering the question, right? Is
Yeah,
still and with
still
very
on
high
topic.
vote. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jessica, give me one.
Okay. Why are people willing to spend so much money on high fashion?
Oh gosh, that question is sort of out of left field for me because I don't think about high fashion ever, nor do I really understand why people would spend a lot of money on any clothing. But I guess for those that are really into modeling and impressing others with the things they wear, that's their priority. And so they're willing to really lay down some cash for something like that.
I love that phrase, lay down some cash. It's funny this question came up because I just was listening to a podcast yesterday about Coco Chanel. Oh my
Mm.
gosh, the sordid history of Coco Chanel. So there's a lot of like talk about fast fashion in there. Um,
Mm.
our throwaway culture started with some of her ideas, which I thought was interesting. Anyway, there's some ideas for you guys to explore, useful for IELTS.
For sure.
Our throwaway culture and fast fashion. Definitely look up those terms, guys, because there are some high level ideas you could use on IELTS.
Yeah, I saw
Okay.
a film a couple of years ago called Chanel, which, yeah,
Yeah.
same story. And it is interesting to think about. And watching a movie like that will help give you ideas
Yeah.
for fashion questions that might come up on IELTS
Totally.
or listening to that podcast. Absolutely.
I remember a documentary from years ago called The September Issue. And
Mm.
I've always like I don't really read fashion magazines, but I do like the September issue from Vogue because it's like
Mm.
it's just like a landmark event every year. But that documentary is really interesting, the September
Oh,
issue.
okay.
Okay.
Check it out. All right. One more for you, Jessica.
Last
Are you
one.
ready?
Yep, yep.
What is an environmental problem in your country?
Well, sad to say, this question doesn't cross my mind enough because I know there are such a multitude of problems. It's hard to commit to knowing a lot about just one, I think. I mean, I know superficially some of the rivers in Portland are dirty, they're polluted, not up to safety standards. The timber industry in Oregon, where I live, is a hotly debated topic because we shouldn't be cutting down that many trees. It ruins nature, it ruins animal habitats. So unfortunately, I only really know like superficial sort of details about these problems, but I know there are a lot, sadly, that still need to be addressed.
Oh, I love how you adjusted that first filler phrase because it is even more useful this way. Because there will be questions where, like, maybe you haven't thought about it a lot, but maybe we should, right? So to say
Mhm.
instead, oh, this question doesn't cross my mind as often as it should is a great way to adjust that because there will probably be less questions that have never crossed your mind like you've
Yeah,
never even considered it, but
right.
this will happen a lot that there will be things you're asked about that maybe we should think about more, like our use of technology, environment. There will be lots of things where you're like, yeah, this is something we should be talking about.
Yeah, I think this phrase is probably more useful like that. You're
Yeah.
right. For questions that, I mean, sure, like they have crossed your mind at some point. You are aware of these issues,
Mhm.
but you just haven't thought about it in detail, right? So you could be like, I mean, this has crossed my mind, of course, but I honestly don't have a lot of knowledge about it. Like again, like this just goes towards our strategy of always being honest, say when
Mhm.
you know, say when you don't know, say when you're going off topic, say when you're giving an example. Like we just want you guys to communicate very directly and honestly on the exam because that always is the best strategy to help your score.
And I loved that vocabulary you used to call your knowledge superficial. And absolutely, don't hesitate to admit that, right? If you feel like you don't have a lot of deep knowledge, a lot of interesting facts to share, you can say, honestly, my knowledge about this is a little bit superficial, but what I do know is, and then share
Mhm.
those superficial details. They're still answering the question.
Yeah, totally. What a jam-packed episode to help your IELTS scores. Guys, if you have an IELTS question for us, send it to support@allearsenglish.com. And remember to follow us on YouTube, subscribe, get those notifications, and then you can not just hear us talking, but you can see our beautiful faces and our amazing body language. I'm using my hands a lot right now. Check us out on YouTube, guys. IELTS Energy TV.
Awesome. This was a
All
fun
right.
one. I love teaching filler phrases because you guys know you cannot just have a pause, a hesitation where you're saying nothing or just being like,
That will hurt your score.
you have to
Yes.
say something, right? These are great options. Practice these so that you have them ready like an arsenal, something to say while you think of your answer.
Awesome. All right. Very cool. Aubrey, I will see you next week.
Awesome. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.